Presidential Transition Council unveils program of events for 2023 presidential inauguration.
On Monday, the 29th of May 2023, which is the D-Day, the inauguration parade and swearing in of the newly elected president.
Presidential Election Petition Court reserves ruling in Atiku Abubakar's application for live telecast of proceedings. And President Buhari receives new diplomats, calls for respect for Nigeria's traditional institutions. And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on achieving universal health coverage after May 29. All right, and their access to health care services and protecting the poor and vulnerable populations from impoverishing effects of medical expenses have remained a global issue.
Nigeria has, however, over the years made efforts to address these public health challenges, and this has been through various reforms in the healthcare delivery system. And
some of those will include introduction of the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is now known as the National Health Insurance Act, NHIA, National Immunization Coverage Scheme, Midwife Service Scheme, and Nigerian Pay-for-Performance Scheme.
Now, in spite of these reforms, access to universal health coverage has continued to remain a huge challenge, as fewer than 3% of Nigerians are covered under the National Health Insurance Scheme.
And the World Health Organization, WHO, as well as the United Nations, in efforts to achieve universal health coverage, made it one of the targets when adopting the Sustainable Development Goals SDGs 2030 agenda.
To address the gaps in achieving the universal health coverage in the country, key players in the health sector at the health financing meeting in Abuja last week drew up modalities to accelerate the implementation of the National Health Authority Act. And the purpose, of course, is to ultimately improve the health of Nigerians. But the question remains, how many Nigerians do they have access to quality and affordable health care?
And where are we precisely in achieving universal health coverage? What are some of the modalities to accelerate the implementation of the National Health Insurance Act? Now, these and many more are questions that we hope our guests will provide answers to on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Rasak. As always, it's a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague to also welcome you to the program being broadcast live, as always, on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And we are reaching you from our headquarters studios in Abuja. In the course of the program, we'll have our regular complimentary segments, and these include business and newspaper review. For now, we'll take the highlights of the morning news, and our colleague, Comfort Amodu, is right here with us to give us the news. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Kingsley and Claire. Here's the news highlights. President Muhammadu Buhari is advising diplomats on tour of duty in Nigeria to always uphold the noble standards of diplomacy like the predecessors by respecting traditional institutions in the country. This was while exchanging views with the British High Commissioner to Nigeria and his counterpart from the Democratic Republic of Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, President Buhari has inaugurated the recently completed Kashimbila multipurpose dam in Taraba State, and the president performed the function virtually. The buffer dam project, designed to check threat of flood from imminent break of the structurally weak Lake Yunus Dam in Cameroon, also has capacity of supplying 40 megawatts of electricity to the national grid.
The realization of this project demonstrates our commitment to achieving the target of Electricity Vision 30-30-30, which entails the supply of 30 gigawatts of electricity.
President Muhammadu Buhari has called on Nigerians to work on the path of duty to nation if they want to see the country achieve new heights. He made the call while granting audience to his media support group, the Buhari Media Organization, whom he described as a model of national sacrifice.
I wonder which type of Nigerians you are. I thank you very much. I'm extremely grateful for what you have been doing voluntarily. I appreciate it.
Posterity will judge you favorably as you leave this office in a blaze of glory. We seek your permission to continue to be of service to the incoming administration.
The Presidential Election Petition Court has reserved ruling on the application filed by Atiku Abubakar for an order of the court for live broadcast of the proceedings of his petition during the pendency of the matter. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, has commended the media for the role they play in nation building over the years. Now, the SGF made the commendation at the quarterly meeting of Nigeria Interreligious Council with the theme Media and Effective Leadership for Nation Building.
I want to thank the media for the unflinching support over the years in ensuring the growth and development of our hard-earned democracy, and to encourage that more should still be done.
We are ready to listen to you. We are ready to write to the government what your fears are, what your aspirations are.
Towards having a smooth and orderly transfer of power from the present administration to the incoming Presidential Transition Council, has unveiled a series of activities for the 2023 presidential inauguration ceremony.
On Monday, the 29th of May 2023, which is the D-Day, inauguration parade and swearing in of the newly elected president and the president and president-elect of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at the Eagle Square at 10 a.m.
Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says deregulation and liberalization have rather enhanced the roles of media in informing citizens, promoting free speech and holding government accountable to the people. Addressing the 14th ordinary session of the African Union of Broadcasting, Lai Mohammed notes that the Nigerian government has embraced digital transformation by strengthening public service broadcasters with relevant reforms and policies.
Africa are significant and complex. However, it is important to remember that our organizations continue to play a critical role in informing and entertaining the public, and what we do is necessary for the health of our democracies.
To tackle challenges associated with vaccines accessibility, especially for children, the National Primary Health Care Development Agency has relaunched the Gavi Direct Funding to ensure universal coverage of child vaccination in the country.
Achieving polio eradication, strengthening the routine immunization system, and revitalization of PHC in Nigeria.
You don't do a few things and then rest on your oar. It's a continuous exercise and service.
And that's the news. Stay tuned for more on Good Morning Nigeria with Claire and Kinsley. Good morning.
As I stand before you, I don't have a diplomatic passport. Not because I don't want it, not because I cannot have it, but because I don't want to get indulged. Pure and simple. I want to be a citizen of a country And just citizenship is the simplicity of living within the realm of your effort. Please, let's build Nigeria together.
Ovieme.
Oh, I wish you were here.
I'm always with you.
But it's not the same without you.
Drop it that.
MTN 5G's amazing technology will change how we experience life and the internet. Get ready to encounter the incredible. And remember, no be juju, na MTN 5G.
In the heat of the summer, Okada seats feel like hot plates.
How do I cope with this heat?
And how do I cope with that bad odor?
By staying 5 degrees cooler.
Body odor is caused by germs, and on hot days, the sweating and the odor are more. That's why you need to get the new improved Dettol Cool Soap, which offers up to 5 degrees instant cooling sensation and protects you from 99.9% odor-causing germs.
The launching and presentation of 2 new books, State of Repair, How Muhammadu Buhari Tried to Change Nigeria for Good by Anthony Goldman, and The Legacy of Muhammadu Buhari by Senator Abu Ibrahim, is scheduled as follows. Venue, State House Conference Center, Aso Rock Villa. Date, Friday, 19th May 2023. Time, 9:30 a.m. Special guest of honor, President Commander-in-Chief Muhammadu Buhari. Chairman of the occasion, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana. Expected at the event are His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President-elect, and His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, the Vice President-elect. Attendance will be strictly by invitation. Announcer, Ambassador Babagana Kingibe GCON, Chairman, Organizing Committee.
Nigeria is a country of many cultures, languages and beliefs. But despite our differences, there is one thing that unites us all, our love for this great nation. Sometimes we may feel that we need to go fast and go alone. But when we come together and work as a team, we can go far beyond what we ever thought was possible. United, we can create thriving businesses that benefit our communities and in turn, our nation. It is said that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Let's understand our differences and come together to build a better Nigeria. When we work together, there is nothing we can't achieve. Nigeria, better together.
This message is powered by the Presidential Transition Council, PTC.
I am in Basic 2. I am from Oba Community Primary School 2. The people from Ubeg, representative from the Abia State Government, headmistress and teachers from Oba Community Primary School 2. My fellow pupils, ladies and gentlemen, good day. We welcome you to this unique occasion. We thank our President Muhammadu Buhari for the school feeding program. Some of us do not eat while coming to school, but this school feeding has helped us a lot. May God bless our presidents and governors in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you,
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's time for business news. And the Nigerian Shippers Council says it has saved over 2 billion naira from funds that could have been lost to shipping companies and terminal operators through demurrage charges, among others. For details of that and more, we join our correspondent, Dr. Alabi.
The Nigerian Shippers Council has saved 2.7 billion naira between 2020 and 2022, recorded from a total of 1,727 complaints. Breakdown of the figures showed that 2021 had the highest figure of complaints by shippers, with 666 cases handled and 2.5 billion naira recovered, as against 648 cases, where the Shippers Council recovered 57 million naira in 2020 on behalf of the trading public. In 2022, a total of 413 cases was recorded, which was a clear indication of a sharp drop in complaints by the trading public, with a sum of 204 million naira recovered on behalf of the shippers and freight forwarders. Some of the recovered funds are from excessive charges, while some are from demurrage or container deposit refunds and damages of cargo, among others. In the meantime, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) has said that the removal of trade barriers among African countries will help lift 50 million people out of poverty. IMF believes trade barriers removal would increase median goods trade between African countries by 53% and would also increase the rest of the world by 15%, as implementation of the trade area and supporting policies could boost trade and income, as well as help African countries integrate into regional value chains.
For Nigeria products to displace products that are imported from France, from Europe, we have to make sure that we get it right with packaging, with labeling. And besides, it's a technical barrier to trade. WTO rules are there.
Essentially, you must be trading outside the ECOWAS, because that is when you are now really testing the guided trade initiative. And then the duties you are paying as a business or as an exporter will be reduced under this guided trade initiative, and of course under AFTA, which is a liberalized trade regime.
World Bank estimates that African Continental Free Trade Area will increase Africa's income by $450 billion by 2035 and increase intra-African exports by more than 81%. With business news, I am Tokbe Alabi.
All right, many thanks to you, Tokbe Alabi, for the business package this morning. And let's move on now to newspaper review, and that's coming up next.
Our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okoli-Ogbaja, is right here with us on the studios for today's edition of a review of the papers. Chukwudi.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Claire.
All right, good to see you.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And you?
Could be better, but we thank God for small mercies.
It's Friday.
Yep.
All right, let's begin by taking a look at the window page of the Daily Sun newspaper. And there is an earpiece that's beside the name flag. And it says NNPC pays off $3.8 billion JV cash call debt. JV stands for joint venture and aims to grow crude oil production to 1.8 million barrels per day in July. The list story is on May 29th, which is the kicker. No court can stop Tinubu's inauguration. And that's been attributed to the federal government. You have details of that on page 6. With two riders, NSA, that's National Security Advisor, warns unauthorized persons to stay away from Eagle Square, not Eagle Square, Eagle Square. And Buhari to confer Tinubu and Shetima with GCFR and GCON. Anambra attacks, police arrests 2 race criminal camp in Ogbaru community. Zamfara governor facing 70 billion naira fraud investigation. That's according to the EFCC, and 150 CSOs demand removal of agency's boss. Buhari to diplomats, always respect cultures and traditional institutions. New moon, Sultan directs Muslims to look for crescent of Dul Kadar. Umba Enugu governor-elect slams 20 billion naira lawsuit on NYC. Despite postponement, NPC, that's the Population Commission, spends 200 billion naira on national census. So how do they expect them to spend the money? That's the question that arises. Were they going to spend the money when the census is being conducted, or you spend money before you do the actual head count? Akpabio hails Aisha Buhari over inauguration of AFLPM, that is African First Ladies Peace Mission Building. Elder statesman Anye Mude dies at 82. Tribunal reserves ruling on Atiku and Tinubu live broadcast requests. Why we oppose it, INEC and Tinubu, that's the rider. Court remarks Sheun Kuti for additional 4 days. Details on page 4. Claire.
Yeah, apart from one story here, I think the other stories that you've read are also on the front page of Leadership Friday. And the story that I just like to point out is the one just below the picture story there. And it reads, Matawale will be arrested for 70 billion naira fraud. And that is according to the EFCC. And that's just about the only story that's different from what Kingsley has read. The other stories about litigation can't stop Tinubu's inauguration is also trending on the front page. There is also the story about Sheun's continued stay in police custody by 4 days. It's also on the front page. And the LP crisis, Bure Akpakpa return to trenches is on the front page. Enjoying the front page mention on Leadership Friday. And there's also just a little below the nameplate, Tribunal rules today on Atiku's motion for live coverage. Okay, I think that's just about it. Okay. Chooks the boy.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Let me quickly look at this bit. That reminds us that the youth service was set up for a cause. And that cause, was to ensure that some kind of integration happens. When Nigerian youths, well, when the youth corps started, some people were graduates almost at the age of, 40. But the essence of it was to ensure that people actually get integrated in Nigeria. Let them become citizens Nigeriana. If you are in Enugu and you're taken to Borno, for instance, you get opportunity to know about how other people live their lives. The end goal was to, bring about a situation where there is more unity and understanding across the country. I don't know how much of that is still being realized, given all the about turns that are happening, within the polity. But there's a story that it pleases me here.
Chooks, the NYSC scheme is one scheme that I've always, appreciated. And there was a time when, it was out there in the public whether or not to scrap it or not. And I'm like, no, this is one scheme, if well implemented. I know, like you said, in those days, if you schooled in the east, you were probably going to get a deployment to the north or to the south.
Exactly.
And if you did in the south, you were probably going to go to the north. For instance, I did my NYSC rotation. I schooled in Lagos, and I was taken to Kwara State, and I'm sure you know my story, so I don't have to tell it,
And your trip to Kwara State turned out a wonderful trip. Claire.
No, but you see, that's the kind of
exactly that's integration we're talking about. Yours is actually a very eloquent expression of how it could be taken to the limit. You understand?
Yes.
Actually, the reason I'm taking that up is at 50, Buhari is granting 65 corpus automatic employment. That's 50 years of the NYSC. And I think this is quite commendable. Claire, on a little selfish note, I got an award myself at our high school, Ajashin School, you know, where the teak tree was Ajashi.
You got it correct.
I got it right. The security guard made me feel tall. Yeah, anytime I returned from town. Ọkùnrin dada, ọkùnrin ogun.
Did you pick up the year you're speaking from there?
Yeah. The smattering I have, I picked it up from there. But there was something it injected in my system when I was addressed as an important Nigerian, as an NYSC member. We should commend the president, honestly, you know, handing out automatic employment and scholarships.
I don't know if Kesley wants to come in here, but I'm always going to say, I'm always going to give thumbs up to the NYSC scheme, except that now people, you know, tend to
influence
posting, and then because of the security issues in Upper North, you know, so things have taken the other way around. But it's still a very good scheme. And by the way, you know, I like to say it so that people get to know. While I was doing my NYSC in Kwara State, my husband was also serving in my own state, you know. So you can imagine.
Oh, so
by sheer divine act of, you know, divine will.
Oh, also my theory on inevitable matrimony would not even gel too much. I thought the two of you, you know, were together.
No,
that was how you got.
Not at all. I didn't know him in Kwara. I never knew such a man existed anywhere. You know.
Now you're talking.
Yes.
But now you know he exists.
You see,
but there are happy stories of youth corps members who met during the NYSC program and got married and are still happily married till today.
Yes.
I believe that the NYSC that has been on now for 50 years is one for which we should continue to praise General Yakubu Gowon, because it was his administration in 1973 that introduced the scheme as part of the integrative policies after the end of the Civil War in January 1970. He should be commended for that, and the point was always made that actually the NYSC scheme was the brainchild of the late Professor Adebayo Adedeji, who eventually went to the Economic Commission for Africa.
Yes.
Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa. And when Professor Adedeji passed away some years ago, General Gowon attended the funeral personally. So that tells you the bond that existed between him and Professor Adedeji, and those with whom he served, of course, during his 9-year rule from 1966 until 1975. Now, it wasn't just only the NYSC, brilliant scheme. If you remember, part of what also came out in the course of the war and the aftermath was the Children's Day celebration. Children's Day celebration was also an idea of the General Yakubu Gowon administration. And so May 27th, which is just like 2 days before the inauguration, we have Children's Day. And of course, children will remember that that's the day for merriment by themselves. And some of the persons who participated in the first scheme, at the beginning, it was university graduates as well as graduates of colleges of education, because College of Education took 3 years, and then of course those who had who went to the Polytechnic.
Yes.
Because the population size was manageable.
Yes.
But as the population also grew, they then eliminated those who had the NCE from the scheme, and then at some point they also reduced the age of those who could participate. So
exactly.
After 30 years, you couldn't participate in the scheme. There were some instances that occurred that tried, of course, to disrupt the scheme in terms of corruption. We know what happened. Colonel Peter Obasa and one other military officer, those who were in charge then, they were jailed by the Buhari military regime in 1985. But of course, it's a scheme
to praise Ghana in his town,
even though he was standing in. I don't know if the Unity school scheme as well is as effective, although you know the Unity colleges. Unity colleges is also one of the integrative schemes, you know, meant to.
Well, the Unity schools were expanded. The Unity schools ideas started in the First Republic. In the First Republic, yes, under Tafawa Balewa administration and Okotiebo. That was when the first set of unity schools were established, but of course, they've been expanded to by 100 and something now, I believe,
I think,
in different parts. It was part of the integrative things, but
106.
yeah, but related to the NYSC scheme, this is what we're talking about.
Yes.
We don't need to brag about it, but of course, if you participated in the NYSC, you always have memories of the orientation service. There was the drill master for us then, where I served in the north. He was a staff sergeant, and he said, we asked him his name. They were not wearing name badges at the time, and he said his name was Sergeant Staff Qualification. Very brilliant, brilliant and cheerful non-commissioned officer that we had. And the friendships that we established, first at the orientation camp and later on in the course of the same, those friendships have endured. Those whom you also met who were not youth corps members, the friendships have also endured. So it's a beautiful thing. Yes, I mean, I earned a certificate of merit for service during the period. But I think that it's a shame to the Nigerian elite class that this laudable idea now has been reduced to one where everybody is seeking to serve within its own community. The fault is not that of the youth corps members who are seeking to hide in their communities or places where they think they are safe. It is those of us who are the elite class that have failed to make the environment more peaceable. And then we are the ones who are also the first in line to say, take my daughter to this place, take my son to this place, take this one to that. We know everybody wants to survive. So we do hope that the more peaceable the country is, the better it will be for people to go afar. If you went to a school and you were posted for your youth service to a nearby state, you will be upset during our time. But now everybody says, look, no, I schooled here, I went to a primary school, nursery, secondary, university, NYC, employment, the same location. You have no clear world view of that.
Just to end this paper review, I particularly enjoyed the endurance trek. The endurance trek from Yikpata through the thick forest, going through the bees and the buzz and, of the bees and all whatnot. It was quite interesting. And, I also got a certificate. I also got an award.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Is it because I mentioned
there was something?
Time is up. Don't drag this thing into an... You got an award because Chukudi says he got an award.
No.
Chukudi, I hope you remember this. I don't want to say it. I'm drawing your attention to
yes.
it. Because, let's throw it in. There's nothing else of... Every other thing else is politics. During the NYC orientation program, you got into the orientation program shortly after your degree results were released.
Yes.
All right, that's before your convocation. In fact, it was during the course of the service year that you went for your convocation. So students who were going for NYC usually were lean because they had swatted in the course of the degree exams. So when they gave you your kit, you had to go and be slim fitting.
That's it.
And all that. But during the passing out parade, you will see all the everywhere.
I think it was 9 naira there.
Anyway, Chukudi, I will end
we look like
this,
beautiful vultures, happy vultures.
Just so you know,
we were lean.
I got the prize for being the female captain of the best female hostel in Yikpata.
Good morning, ma'am.
All right, thank you. And of course, that's newspaper review for today. Chukudi, thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Have a pleasant weekend. We'll see you on Monday. All right, let's take a short break now. We'll be right back.
In the heat of the summer, Okada seats feel like hot plates.
How do I cope with this heat?
And how do I cope with that bad odor?
By staying 5 degrees cooler.
Body odor is caused by germs, and on hot days, the sweating and odor are more. That's why you need to get the new improved Dettol Cool Soap, which offers up to 5 degrees instant cooling sensation and protects you from 99.9% odor-causing germs.
Nigeria is a country of many cultures, languages and beliefs. But despite our differences, there is one thing that unites us all, our love for this great nation. Sometimes we may feel that we need to go fast and go alone, but when we come together and work as a team, we can go far beyond what we ever thought was possible. United, we can create thriving businesses that benefit our communities and in turn, our nation. It is said that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Let's understand our differences and come together to build a better Nigeria. When we work together, there is nothing we can't achieve. Nigeria, better together.
This message is powered by the Presidential Transition Council, PTC.
My name is Abimbola Majokodumi, and I'm from Abuja, Ogun State. Actually, I just got here coming from United States as a frequent flyer into Nigeria. I've never been to this airport. I've kind of heard about it, but I've never seen it. So when I came out from the airport, I was kind of disoriented a little bit, like what's going on here?
I'm Comrade Derigo Ehidiame. I'm from Edo State, Nigeria. I'm coming from a trip. I've passed through so many African countries before getting to this place. When I saw Nigeria airport, I marveled.
So I just want to commend the work that's been done here. It's a beautiful place. I mean, I made quite some videos and pictures, unlike the other airports.
Kudos to the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari.
And I give it up to Buhari for giving us this beautiful airport. I hope the maintenance culture kicks in.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Honestly, words cannot express how we feel. Before the bridge, the road from here, Nasarawa to Loko, is about 74 kilometers. This is the link between Nasarawa and Loko. The bridge, which is about 3-5 kilometers across the river Benue, has been on for about 10 years now. Before now, if you live here for Loko, 74 kilometers, and somebody leaves Nasarawa for Kaduna, he will get to Kaduna before you get to Loko. The implication of the completion of this bridge is the cutting of the travel distance by about 3 hours. Our people from Nasarawa can now travel from here to Onitsha and come back on the same day. The economic and social consequences of this milestone development can hardly be compared to the ease with which people move has opened the area, and many people are coming around now to invest in agriculture. Where to score this government on this achievement, we will score them extremely high because it has changed the dynamics of the social and economic activities of our people.
It's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. As a prompt for our conversation, which is on striving to achieve universal health coverage after May 29th, let's take this backgrounder compiled by our correspondent, Oyemi Ajayi.
When we talk about universal health coverage, it means that all the people are expected to have access to the full range of quality health services that they need when and where they need them without financial hardship. It covers the full continuum of essential health services from health promotion to prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, and palliative care across the life course. Over time, this has been the major focus of subsequent governments to ensure comprehensive universal health coverage in Nigeria, where even the less privileged will have access to good health. For some time, Nigeria has been faced with challenges that delay progress towards the attainment of the national government's declared goal of universal health coverage. And one of such is the system-wide inequalities resulting from lack of financial protection for the healthcare needs of the vast majority of Nigerians. Only a small proportion of Nigerians have prepaid healthcare, especially the elites. Research reveals that only 3% of Nigerian population have health insurance provided for by employee health coverage. And this reflects the fact that 97% of Nigeria's population is not covered by any kind of health insurance. Access to affordable healthcare remains out of reach for most Nigerians, especially those without formal employment, despite the introduction of various health insurance programs, which includes the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS, which has now changed to National Health Authority Act, which many say has failed to capture those out of employment cycle. Now, just as the present administration will soon be handing over by May 29, it is quite obvious that more work still needs to be done to ensure that Nigeria achieve universal health coverage. Experts say the country must fully revitalize its primary health care centers to achieve universal health coverage, as well as overcome obstacles militating against giving due attention to primary health centers and their optimal performance, knowing well that up to 70% of the country's disease burden can be treated at the primary health centers, and vital disease prevention and health promotion education can be given, including immunization. So, what best can the new administration do for Nigeria to achieve universal health coverage? These and some questions guests will be answering shortly.
All right, Tuyeyemi Ajayi, thank you for the background report. And of course, our topic once again, we're looking at universal health coverage and Nigeria. How far have we gone? So, to look at achieving health coverage in Nigeria today, we have already seated our guests. Let me begin the introductions. Professor Nasiru Sambo is the Director General, National Health Insurance Authority, NHIA, and he joins us live here in the studio. And also here with us, Dr. Faisal Shuaib, Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, NPHCDA. He is also live with us here in the studio. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers.
All right, we have two other guests, Dr. Isaac Abuja, public health specialist. Dr. Abuja, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And equally here is Dr. Gafar Alawode, who's an expert on health financing. Dr. Alawode, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you, and good morning.
And incidentally, all four guests are regular on Good Morning Nigeria. So you know our protocol. And health issues are matters that we have always engaged you on from time to time. I was just wondering, starting from broad principles, the whole idea of seeking to achieve universal health coverage, whether in terms of the legal framework, in terms of policies flowing from the legal framework, the establishment of agencies, and so on and so forth, and then the numbers that we are getting, which do not appear to be quite salutary. Are we once again confronting the typical challenge of having good intentions in terms of plans and ideas, and then grappling with implementation? Let's begin with Professor, who is in charge of the National Health Insurance Authority, Professor Sambo.
Thank you very much, Tracy, for having me in this meeting. I think if you go through the history, you see that there have been so many conventions, declarations at international level, which are usually domesticated at the national level, and it will permeate to even subnational levels. If you recall the famous Alma Ata Declaration of 1978, and you also look at recall the Millennium Development Goals. If you compare the goals and targets, you see that they are virtually the same, because you are talking about access to health, access to other issues that are very critical to the healthcare, education, nutrition, water supply, and so on and so forth. And if you now come to universal health, all these efforts, like Alma Ata Declaration is talking about health for all by the year 2000 and beyond. So they are virtually the same thing that are being renamed in one form or the other. And this is typical characteristic of the international community. If there is a program that has taken a long time, they will try to repackage it so as to catalyze other activities. So in the same vein, you now have what is called Sustainable Development Goals. At the expiration of the Millennium Development Goals, you have the Sustainable Development Goals, which has goals, targets, and indicators. The SDG 3 is talking about attainment of universal health coverage. The whole essence of all these conventions and declarations that I taught is health is a social issue, and there must be equity in the process of provision of healthcare delivery services. And the equity to ensure that nobody is left behind is the underpinning principle behind all these conventions and innovations. So essentially, the SDG 3 is talking about sustainable development goals. It's talking about universal health coverage. And by universal health coverage, you are looking at how you can provide quality healthcare services to the teeming populace, whether it is curative or preventive, rehabilitative, and other form of care. And there are three fundamental elements if you are to implement, if you are to pursue the issue of universal health coverage. The first thing is, what is the level of total population coverage in terms of having geographical access to healthcare? What is the level of functional access in terms of having access to services of care? And what is the essence, or what is the level of financial access in terms of how can people be able to get healthcare services without going into a catastrophic health situation? A person is said to be in catastrophic health situation when he has to spend about 10% of his income to get access to services. So in discussing the universal health coverage, we are talking about population coverage. How many people have been covered? What are the kind of services available? And what is the level of financial risk protection that is there? So these are the three elements.
Okay, let's thank you, Professor Samble, for the points that you have raised. In implementing universal health coverage, the driving agency is the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and whatever happens to the agency happens to our coverage percentage. Dr. Faisal, I know the Sustainable Development Goals, set out certain indicators and time frames, for member countries, signatory countries to meet, but it also helps, a country driving the health, universal health coverage. To the specifics, can you give us our thematic goals and how far we have gone in each of those goals?
So, in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, it is actually goal number 3 that is really focused on the health aspects. And the general assessment is that if we continue at the level and trajectory that we're going at, we're not likely to achieve goal number 3, and that is of great concern to us in Nigeria. And this is why in the last few years, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, we have focused on those strategies that will help ensure that there's more access to quality primary health care. That is to say, making sure that people are able to access care without incurring catastrophic health expenditure. As you may be aware, up to 78% of Nigerians, have to pay out of pocket for their health services. But how do you make sure that they actually get that quality of service is very, very critical. How do you make sure that when you go to a primary healthcare center, you can actually access quality health care? We're not going to be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals because first and foremost, we do not have the right numbers of health workers in our health facilities. We do not have the right infrastructure to provide these services. We still have a large number of health facilities that don't have the right equipment, they don't have the utilities, they don't have the drugs and commodities. Of course, there's been tremendous progress in the last few years, but we still need to invest in primary health care to be able to achieve our goals. So if we talk about what the transition period and what
how much progress have we made? Because I know the last time we were here is the same story of we're making progress. But to be specific now, if you had to benchmark against 100, what percentage of progress have we made? Are we moving at all?
Oh, absolutely. You can look in terms of coverage, for instance. Clearly, in the last few years, we've been able to, for example, revitalize up to 6,000 of the 10,000 primary healthcare facilities that the federal government had actually intended to cover in terms of improving the infrastructure. We still have challenges with the human resources. We still have challenges with ensuring that people don't have to pay, out of pocket. And this is where, the NHIA Act is going to help making sure that up to 83 million most vulnerable Nigerians actually have coverage. That is to say, they don't have to go to health facilities and then be expected to pay out of pocket. So providing that type of risk protection is very, very critical. When you talk about the need for us to improve coverage, this is one point where the next administration will have to use health as a rallying point for patriotism. It can use health as the sort of rallying point for individuals to see what government is doing. This means that government has to put in more money. The last administration has invested in health, but for us to be able to get to a situation where we can begin to see the dividends, the kinds of investments, then we need to do much more. So, for example, the current guidance from the NHIS is that about 15,000 naira per capita per individual is required for you to be able to at least cover some of the services. Now, imagine if you are able to add another 5,000 naira to that. What it means is that we're going to be able to avert as much as 160,000 maternal deaths annually. We'll be able to avert 660,000 neonatal deaths annually, and then we're able to avert up to 800,000 children under 5 dying annually. Now, by the time you're able to increase that to about 26,000, you're talking about averting as many as 1 million maternal deaths every year. You're able to avert as much as up to 5 million under 5 deaths. So the investment is very, very critical. We've seen progress in terms of increasing the naira amount, but there's still a gap. So, for example, the expectation is from the Abuja declaration is that government should spend up to 15% of their total annual budget in the health sector. We've only been able to hit as much as 6%, right? And then when you look at the subnational level, yes, a lot of states, well, some states have been able to reach 15% in terms of their allocation to health, but when it comes to release, we have less than 10%.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Faisal Shoaib. We'll return to you. I want to bring in Dr. Isaac Abuja. At the same time, return to the first question I posed to Professor Sambo, so that we know where we are headed and what hurdles we might face in seeking now to ramp up universal health coverage in the country. As Professor Sambo eloquently reminded us, we all remember that in the 80s and 90s, the song was always health for all by year 2000, housing for all by year 2000. Year 2000 came, we missed it. Then there came the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, of which health was also a component. But the numbers indicated that we didn't quite match up to the expectations. And now we are struggling with the SDGs, as also attested to by Dr. Faisal. We've made some progress, but where, because you've been in this field for a while, where are we missing it? So that it is not just the platitude of saying we want to achieve universal health coverage. What is wrong with the implementation? Is it a strategy? Is it the financing? Or is it just the whole idea of have the challenge of seeking to achieve a universal health coverage in a developing country?
Well, I think this is a very important question. It's a combination of all. It's not just one area. Now, let's take the first part. The actors, the major stakeholders. starting from the federal level, well, in Nigeria we have 3 levels: the federal level, the 2 subnational levels, that's the state and the local government. At the federal level, we have the Federal Ministry of Health with the parastatals that are working with it. Now, let's start from there. How much have we been able to do on an annual basis? How much have we been able to break down our goals into objectives and break the objectives into annual actions? Let me go back a little bit to the question you just asked my colleague, how far we've gone. What I would like to say is, when, for example, the health budget was 3% of the national budget, we were able to build X number of health facilities. We were able to train X number of health personnel. We were able to buy X quantity or number of health equipment. And when the national health budget was increased from 3 to 5%, we were also able to ramp up our implementation by blah, 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 blah. And then we say, fine, when we increase the budget to 7%, what did we achieve, or what do we expect to achieve? By being specific, we'll be able to know where we are doing, what we are doing, how we are doing, and how we need to, and at what level we need to step up our actions. Now, let's go to the subnational levels. That's the state and the local government. If you go to a typical Nigerian state, and you go to the governor, and I'm speaking from experience, and you say, Your Excellency, last year we noticed that you only had about 2% of your state budget for health. We would like you to increase it to 4% this year. And by the way, how many doctors do you have in your state? How many nurses do you have in your state? How many non-governmental institutions do you have in your state? How many non-government actors, NGOs, do you have helping you as partners in your state? Do you know what the governor will tell you? He will call his commissioner. The governor doesn't have a handle. And that's sad, very, very sad. If you are in charge of a state and you don't know how many doctors you have in your state, you don't even know the demography of your state, you don't know how many children you have in your state, you don't know how many adults you have in your state, you don't know what the prevalent health problems you have in your state. You only know that you budgeted X amount of money for health last year. How that money was used sometimes is not even known. For me, it is not a matter of we spend so much amount of money. Anybody can spend much money. My 5-year-old child, for example, if you give him or her 2 billion, he or she can go and share it among the 6 of us sitting here and come back to tell you, Daddy, I have finished the money, I have spent the money. Spending money is not a problem. How do you spend it? How do you prioritize your needs, for example? And like I said, many of the NGOs that were working in Nigeria left, international NGOs, left some years back, and some of them didn't come back because people were not interested. People were not supportive. There are many states today where they say, okay, we are coming to help you. We have this amount of money to spend in your state, but we need counterpart funding. In other words, we want you to contribute. And the government cannot even produce a penny. And therefore the NGOs will say, we're going. Okay, that's on the implementation side. Now let's go back to the nitty-gritty again. And I want to go back to the federal level. When we advocate for increase in health spending, increase in health appropriation, and therefore release, if that would take place, we should be able to say precisely where the money is going, why the money is going, and show results to convince people. When you say to to the National Assembly, for example, that the money you budgeted for health last year was 4%, and we would want you to increase it to 7% this year. And health agencies, the Ministry of Health, National Primary Healthcare Agency, the other parastatals, go there to present their budget and to defend the budget. They have to be convincing. They have to be able to say, this is exactly how we spent the money, this is the result we got, and this is the priority that we have now. Therefore, if you give us this money, when we come back next year, this is the result we are going to show you. So that those in the National Assembly will have precisely what they are going to be looking for when they go for their oversight visits. For me, in the country, everything is fluid. Nothing is specific. Then the worst part of it, coordination is lacking between the national level and the subnational levels, between the federal level and the state level, between the state level and the local government level. Now, because health is on concurrent list, every state thinks they have right to do what they want. But is it really true? Is the policy not set by the federal government? And should they not be monitoring to see how it is done at the subnational level? Then when you go from the state to the local government, the local governments are already strangulated. They don't even have money. So they cannot even cry for money. When they are not able to pay salary, and you are telling them to cry for money for health? No, that's remote. Now, coordination is lacking, cooperation is lacking, communication is lacking at all levels. And then that's looking at it vertically. Let's look at it horizontally. Take the federal level. Do all the stakeholders and actors know who their partners and their supporters are? Do they know how much they are bringing to the table? No. And I can bet you, if you go now and ask the Minister of Health, how many NGOs are working in the country? What money do they bring to the table? What results did they achieve last year? Probably the ones that they will know will be that of WHO, UNICEF.
Dr. Boja, thank you. Let's put you on hold for a while and allow Dr. Gafar Alaude to also wade in into our conversation. And Dr. Faisal Shuaib talked about, two important impediments to achieving universal health coverage. He mentioned the issue of staffing, and he also mentioned the issue of expenses, health expenses. Now, if 78% of Nigerians, total population of Nigeria, expend health, from their pocket to access health care. Yet, health experts are also advocating a kind of private financing model that will equally put the burden on the private citizens. So I'm just curious if you can talk us through the kind of healthcare financing that you think will not only, assuage the burden on the people, but will also help us to get out of this, labyrinth of lack of coverage of UHC.
Okay, thank you very much. I think before I start, let's set the stage by, looking at, when we say financing, I think there are two sides of the financing coins. One side is that, of course, you need to mobilize more money to be able to cover more people, to buy more services, and reduce out-of-pocket expenditure. The other side of the coin is that efficiency of utilization of the resources that you have in terms of where are you putting the money, and are you getting the best result from that money. So when we talk about financing, let's try as much as possible because the either-or approach will not help here, because there are instances, money is our problem. No, money is not our problem. Both are actually our problem in terms of having more money and effective and efficient utilization of that resources. It's a common knowledge that in Nigeria, of course, when you compare our spending level to established parameters and benchmarks, we are not there. In terms of any benchmark, whether you are looking about spending per person, in terms of how much is government spending on individual, or in terms of as a proportion of government spending and other parameters as well. Then at the same time, in terms of getting the best out of the resources that we are even spending. Let me give you some instances, and there are a lot of, I'll allude to the facts mentioned by Dr. Faiza as well. There are a lot of issues around human resource. If you go to, we just did an assessment, and in some states, health workers at the PhD level, they are absent 50% of times. And even those that are not absent, in terms of productivity, how many workers, how many patients are you seeing a day and all those stuff. So there are challenges in terms of both sides. But one interesting thing, so that we are not talking about only challenges, I think that on a more optimistic note, some things have happened in the last few years, and I thank the head of the Health Insurance and National Primary Care Development Agency here present. There are a couple of things that have happened that could set the stage for turnaround in the health system in Nigeria. Number one, whatever you do in terms of financing and everything, you need a legal framework that should be able to tell you, say, okay, because when it comes to universal coverage, some things are very, very crucial. And when it comes to health insurance, one, you must have health insurance that accommodates everybody, not only the civil servants. Irrespective of the informal sector, formal sector, and everything. So we have a legal framework in the National Health Insurance Authority, which I know Prof will speak more about it, that actually make health insurance mandatory for everybody, that all Nigerians should be covered. But that is not enough. It's not enough to say people should be covered without looking at where the resources will come from. The second aspect is that that same legal framework introduces what they call the Vulnerable Group Fund. Looking at, because even when you say health insurance premium is 500, there are Nigerians that are not able to afford it. And what will you do? Are you going to arrest them because of that? So that legal framework introduced the Vulnerable Group Fund, which will mobilize resources from different sources. Now, coming in terms of what is the, where should the resources come from that will promote universal coverage? Globally, countries that have made progress use public funds to support covering people. But if you look at the context, the economic context of Nigeria, looking at the federal budget, huge proportion of the federal budget is even used to pay loan and all those stuff, giving limited amount of room for government to spend more, and that's why you see 4 or 5% allocation. But what that legal framework is talking about, what are the innovative ways of financing this vulnerable group? You understand? And the legal framework make provision for the NHIA and the other stakeholders to look at what are the innovative ways to do that, which DG is actually pursuing, set up a committee that is looking at that. There are a number of things on the ground in terms of telecom tariff, in terms of increasing proportion of basic care provision fund, looking at the cash transfers and everything, which a lot of work has been done. So, which could be a very good template for the incoming administration to leverage on. One other important thing that has happened in this current dispensation is what we call the Basic Care Provision Fund, which by law is supposed to, provide basic minimum package of services for all Nigerians. It is in this dispensation that actually first and foremost allocate money for it. And irrespective of where you come from, your ward, you can point to a facility that is actually benefiting for. So it's established a financing.
It's supposed to be how many percent? Is it 5%?
It's 1% of the consolidated revenue of the federal government. And it's been amended at the National Assembly to increase it to 2%. So those are very, very important things, and on a more optimistic note, that the new administration can actually build. The last one is on raising the accountability bar. In terms of even the little amount of money we spend, what is the transparency framework in terms of all Nigerians can know that this amount of money has gone to these facilities and everything? what is actually changing as a result of this spending. So looking at the Basic Care Provision Fund again, there's this accountability framework which thanks to Dr. Faisal that he signed off on, which is being deployed, being piloted, where Nigerian civil society and everything can actually see this amount of money has gone to this facility, and that this is what is changing the facility in terms of infrastructure, in terms of human resource and everything. So I think those are very, very important things happening.
Dr. Laude, I don't know. Rwanda, I think it's Rwanda, you know, one of the countries that have attained very comprehensive universal health care. And I'm wondering, you know, Rwanda, you know, sprang up from, you know, devastation and all the, you know, destructions and all under development. How was Rwanda able to achieve that?
Okay.
And don't tell me about population strength.
I'll try not to mention about the population strength. I think there are a number of things we have to understand about the context of Rwanda. Rwanda, you said I should not mention population, I will not mention population. But you have to understand the administrative structure in Rwanda, side by side, the administrative or political structure. Rwanda is a unitary state. And when people go to Rwanda to understudy the system, I warn them, when you understand what is going on, try to understand their political structure as well. And Nigeria is a complex, or further is not an excuse for not making progress. But in terms of fundamental things that happened, one, there is a improved high level of public spending on health in Rwanda. And they have health insurance that is planned to cover everybody. But don't let us forget that there's huge donor funding for their universal coverage progress in Rwanda as well. And because it's a population of like 11 million, even the money that you bring is very possible to go, which is probably, that will be half of the population of Lagos or something like that. So, but there are things to learn in terms of leadership, in terms of leadership being interested and more responsive to the health sector, spending larger proportion of health. But at the same time, when we are looking at Rwanda, we have to look at their context and compare with our context and see when we go there, we should adapt, not just adopt what we see there. Yeah.
Dr. Lawode, thank you very much. I like the warning you've given about making comparisons. I mean, a simple, straightforward comparison to make is to ask, for how long has the Rwandan president been in office? And when he came into office, how many Nigerian presidents have we had? And how many are we going to have from May 29th? You talked about the diversity of Nigeria and the tensions that often will arise. But there are lessons to learn. I want to come back to Professor Sambo. Sometimes when we're having these conversations, your mind just goes back to the person on the street who would ultimately be the beneficiary of these whole ideas and suggestions. In the case of Dr. Faisal, it's fairly more straightforward. Immunization, we have an outbreak of disease here and there are many questions for him to respond to with respect to, again, the issues of coordination and cooperation. But for people out there, how much understanding do they have of what's going on? The Basic Health Provision Fund, the Minister of Health has talked about it here, universal health coverage, what do you do? I'm asking this question because you see visuals from health facilities, they are usually crowded, people milling around, and you're not, I mean, a hospital environment is not a cinema. But you don't see happy faces. Everyone is complaining. It's not as if somebody is going there and then say, I'm coming out and I'm well. No, they're asking me to go and buy this. They're asking me to pay this deposit. How much are they aware of what to access and what is working, say, under the universal health coverage? So they might begin to take advantage of it, or where they have been taken advantage of, they can begin to raise queries.
Thank you very much. So many things have been alluded to in terms of what is working and what is not working. Frankly speaking, if we are to address the issue of the healthcare, we need to gather as experts and close ourselves in a very decent place to frankly discuss what are the fundamental challenges in the healthcare delivery system. My initial proposal when I was in university for inaugural lecture was that financing healthcare in Nigeria, where is the missing link? Because I trace various initiatives that various government has done in the country. And to me, if those things, if those financing have been properly harnessed and utilized, we won't be talking of what we are talking. Then the question is now, what are the fundamental problems in the healthcare delivery system? And because it has a capacity to transcend from the policy making level to implementation level. Structurally, Dr. Gafar has talked about looking at the healthcare delivery system. When you are doing comparative analysis of healthcare delivery system, you need to look at the political economy of a country. This is a unitary country. This is a federalism kind of country. You take Rwanda, you take Ghana, you take other countries that are operating a unitary level kind of government, where policy that is developed will seamlessly go down without any difficulty, where the chief executive officer of health, like a minister of health, will issue an order or the policy you see it at the level. I once traveled to Ghana in 2006, and I was understudying the health system of Ghana from top to the bottom. I met some healthcare workers at the level of community. We had an interaction. Why are they here? Why were they there? They told me that they had there was a epidemic of fluorosis in that community, and a team from the national level came to the lower level to investigate, to see and institutionalize investigation mechanism as what happened. So look at how the health sector is communicating from top bottom. If you take a federalism kind of health system, you do a national health policy, you expend so much time in trying to develop the policies. After you have developed the policy, because I have partook in so many policy development of the country, then it will be launched by the federal government. Then the state will now start talking about how to domesticate those policies. And before you know it, a policy that might probably have been taken within 3 months or 6 months will take 3 years without making effort to domesticate. And before you know, the government on the saddle has disappeared. So I tried as a health policy, as a professor of health policy, after I have done several comparative analysis of the health system, I say, how can we address this issue? Because you can develop a policy in a country. Let me give you an example. The Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. It was agreed at the National Council on Health that we should have, every state should have state health insurance agencies to be able to attract the funding that is coming from the federation account. 4 years after commencement, some states have not developed the agencies. Some states have just passed the law. So all these monies that are supposed to go to the state to develop, to increase fiscal space, the state is missing. So managing healthcare in a federalism kind of system is very difficult. So what do we need to do? One, we need to develop what is called accountability framework, whereby the president and the governors will sign an undertaking and commit themselves to the development of the healthcare delivery system. Otherwise, you will continue to develop a policy that will never be implemented. We are talking about coordination. Very, very important. Frankly speaking, there is no coordination in our healthcare delivery system. In a decentralized kind of health system. The only thing that can ginger and catalyze coordination, development in the healthcare system is ability to develop a framework for coordination. What is a framework for coordination? Do we have a situation whereby the chief executive officer of the Ministry of Health having regular interaction with all the agencies of the healthcare delivery system? Do we have even a common blueprint that we are pursuing and that have a lot of indicators and benchmark so that people are held accountable for whatever they do? Then you need to have that coordination at the national level. I remember in 2007, I was a resource person to the National Council on Health, where I presented a very comprehensive framework on how to coordinate the entire health system. Those things are not coming to play in a decentralized health system. When I came as a chief executive officer of the National Health Insurance, I saw an ecosystem that is very fragmented. The federal is not talking with the state. The first thing that I do, Kaparu will bear testimony, is how do we develop a coordination framework so that the health insurance ecosystem will be decentralized and working with a common purpose. That is the essence of when we develop what we call health insurance under our roof. We've been able to achieve quite a lot.
We will allow you to speak more on that, health insurance under one roof, because I think it's very, very important. And if we are to reach, quite those that are not within the civil service, those in the informal sector, which constitute a larger percentage of those that are already within the net. But again, a decentralized healthcare system, like you said, it will be quite difficult to enforce accountability. Like for the states now, just to domesticate the scheme. I mean, we're having to practically beg the states to domesticate the scheme. And that's why, I don't know, Dr. Faisal, should healthcare remain under the concurrent list? Should it still remain there?
I think first off, I think there's this erroneous notion that health is on the concurrent list. That's not correct. It is actually on the residual list. Oh. So exactly. So people just keep making that mistake. So there needs to be, and we've had engagement with members of the National Assembly, that there needs to be a constitutional amendment, right, so that health can be on the concurrent list. There are definitely roles for the federal government to play, there are roles for state government to play, and there are roles for the local government to play. The issue is not necessarily whether it is concurrent or residual. The issue is how do you make sure that people are doing their jobs, that there's implementation, and that there's accountability when the implementation is not done right. I think that is what we need to focus on. If it's in terms of policies and strategies, like Prof mentioned, they are there. Nigerians are very brilliant people. We are not short of the policies and the strategies that we need to implement a health system that delivers quality healthcare to Nigerians. It is about how we deliver on the things that we've agreed upon, right? So this is where it is important that we recognize leadership. So many challenges exist in the health space, but I will not be too quick to condemn everything and say there is a lack of coordination. I think it would be unfair to the system if you say there's lack. When you say there's lack, that means zero, and that is not correct. There's still a lot of work to do. It is suboptimal, and I think what the next administration needs to be doing is how you can build on the work that people have done in the past. We've been able to, for example, achieve polio eradication. That couldn't have been possible without any coordination. We've been able to do a great job of managing the pandemic that global experts have recommended Nigeria. Clearly, we're doing some things right. There's still room for improvement, and I think we should focus on the things that we're getting right and then the best practice so that we can do so much more, right? So, for example, before the advent of this administration, we went 2 decades, for example, where health facilities did not get a single kobo to run their services, right? You go to health facilities, they don't have the drugs. You see health workers sometimes don't come to work because they don't have the equipment, they don't have electricity. But for the very first time in our history, because of the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, we now have a situation where health facilities, at least 7,000 health facilities, get at a minimum 300,000 naira per quarter. It isn't a lot of money, but of course we're coming from somewhere. So it gives us, the health workers, the opportunity, for example, to be able to fix a leaky roof, right? It means that when there is a need for maybe drugs, they can use that resource. It means that by the time we have additional resources coming from the NHIA, they are able to actually hire some human resources. So we have a situation where in the last 3 years, we've hired over 4,000 health workers, midwives, community health extension workers, and they are being paid from the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. I always say that we have to be very careful about the tendency of a single story. Nigeria is not a single story. It's not a story of doom and gloom. There's a lot that we need to do, but we have to also be circumspect when we contextualize the things that we do. It should not be context sterile.
Yes. You know, Doctor, when you said a moment ago that we have hired some 4,000 medical personnel or healthcare personnel, who are the we? Is it the federal government? Is it the state governments? Is it the local governments? That's one question. Yes. And that would lead to the issue of responsibility by the other tiers of government for the healthcare needs of their areas of jurisdiction. And additionally, the issue of coordination or cooperation and so on and so forth, what worked or what has worked for the Primary Healthcare Development Agency, from which we could learn from other things. It is not always rosy. You know this, when you have an outbreak of epidemic, only a few states are able to promptly act as first responders. You always have to move your men and women and materials and resources from the national headquarters. So what is that gap? Because it is in the course of that gap, you will continue to hear of fatalities arising from cholera, which of course is around the corner, with regard to the rainy season. So if you have asked a number of questions, but let me narrow it down. When you say we've been able to hire 4,000 and revitalized 7,000 PHCs and so on and so forth, who is spending this? And where is the counterpart spending also coming from? And what has been your experience in terms of the vertical coordination, cooperation, and of course, achieving results from the subnational entities? Doc.
So when I quote over 4,000 primary healthcare workers that have been recruited in the last 2 to 3 years, I quoted it around what the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund has done. Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, of course, we know is derived from the Consolidated Revenue Fund, right? And those resources are channeled through the NHIA gateway and the NPHCDA gateway. Through the NPHCDA gateway, we make it a policy that within 72 hours of getting those resources, we send the resources directly to the states. So it is the states that are hiring these health workers. It is the states that are assessing, evaluating the work that these health workers are doing, right? So in terms of who, when we say we, we're talking about for us within that gateway, right? And in terms of the responsibility of the local government when it comes to this, now that is another long story in terms of the resources that are available. However, what I want to lay credence to in terms of coordination is I can speak, for NPHCDA and say that at least every quarter we have meetings with the state primary healthcare board executive secretaries, right? And ask them, based on their annual work plans, milestones and targets that they set, how far have they gone in terms of meeting those? And then we have data to work with. We have evidence to work with. So on a quarterly basis, for example, we do what we call the LQAS, right? To see how badly they're doing with routine immunization. And we ask them, why are you not reaching kids despite the resources that are made available? And they give explanations, the challenges that they face, and then we give them, you know, feedback on what they can do better. And then we motivate them, we talk to them. And by the next meeting, we're asking those questions. There is no doubt about the fact that some states have done very well in terms of making their primary healthcare centers better. Some of them have recruited health workers, but we're not anywhere. And I want to emphasize, we're not anywhere near what we can do in Nigeria, given the capacity that we have, given the resources that we have. But we cannot also throw away the baby along with the bathwater and say nothing is happening.
You know, when you say we are not anywhere, international standard, Dr. Fraser, you know, you put a benchmark. You give us that data. You give us figure. So when we hear the figure of where we are and then the gaps remaining, we know the magnitude of the burden, you know, that they're carrying. But when you say we are not anywhere near and you're not giving us a percentage of how
so let me give you
the
a
last
percentage.
time, yes,
78% of Nigerians are paying out of pocket. That is wrong, right? Yeah. That is one statistic that we should be running away from. I'll give another statistic, right? So there's no other place in the world where we have as many children under 5 dying like Nigeria. That is a statistic that we should not be proud of, especially when you match this with the natural resources, the endowment that Nigerians have. Of course, you are going to be unhappy, right? We cannot be at the same level with countries like South Sudan, like Sierra Leone and Chad, that we know don't have the kind of resources that are available to Nigeria. So that is where, yes, there have been some improvement in the last few years, right? But there's still a lot that we need to do. And this is why when we see progress like the enactment of the NHIA Act, that is a shining star in darkness. And we need to appreciate that is progress in the right direction.
All right.
You know, Claire, I know we're taking a break. Just to mention, because yesterday we had a conversation on how to address the incessant work stoppages in the country. That is to say, the industrial relations crisis. We know how many strikes that have occurred and are still occurring in the economy. And one of the ideas that came out of that is to say, look, the ease of doing business that we focus on ordinarily should incorporate at least 2 or 3 ideas. One, ease of doing business as an ecosystem, and that was proffered by Comrade Saremo. It should incorporate ease of living, ease of work, and then tackling wage poverty. Ease of living, part of the numbers you just gave now, where 78% of persons are paying out of their pocket for healthcare needs, and the charges sometimes are arbitrary. So a person takes money out of his pocket, and Prof. Sambo, you did say earlier that where an individual spends 10% of his income on healthcare needs, that is towards the catastrophic end. So you can see the linkage of all of these issues. As you said, it's a matter that we have to tackle. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
Your skill is key to your professional growth in the competitive broadcast media industry. Take advantage of the following programs specially packaged by NTA Television College Jos to upgrade your skill. Computer General Application, date 8 May to 19th May 2023, 2 weeks. English Grammar and Pronunciation for Broadcasters, date 22nd May to 9th June 2023, 3 weeks. Basic Broadcast Accounting and Auditing, date 22nd May to 9th June 2023, 3 weeks. Marketing in the Era of Digital Broadcast, date 13th June to 23rd June 2023, 2 weeks. Drama Production Workshop, date 3rd July to to 21st July 2023, 3 weeks. Intermediate online news reporting skills, date 24th July to 11th August 2023, 3 weeks. The course fee for the 2-week course is 120,000 naira, while the fee for the 3-week course is 150,000 naira only. Accommodation inclusive. All courses will hold at NTA Television College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For further inquiries, please call 0803-079-5335 or 0806-980-9807. NTA Television College, Jos, training you to be the best you want to be. Registrar Announcer.
Nigeria is a country of young entrepreneurs and great talent with the potential of making global impact. From the north to the south, there are high-skilled talents who have created businesses that are making waves globally.
Electric vehicles are not just the future, they are the now, and they are the now for Nigeria too.
Jelani Aliu, presently driving the innovation of the electric cars in the country. Victor Osimhen is a foremost Nigerian footballer and a striker with the Napoli Football Club of Italy. He is currently among the top 3 world-rated strikers in the European League.
And Osimhen sweeps it home.
Toby Amusha is a Nigerian sprinter.
The African champion, the Commonwealth champion, became the world champion, but the world record holder as well. 12.40 in the semis.
Nigeria is a country full of potential, and its young people are the driving force behind its growth and development. Believe in yourself and believe in Nigeria.
Nigeria, better together.
This message is powered by the Presidential Transition Council, PTC.
All I need to say about the second River Niger Bridge, 21 years ago, as I came onto this throne, it will normally take you 3 to 4 hours to cross the bridge. I mean, if you are going to Lagos, you spent almost half your time on the bridge. And you were stuck on the bridge before you came across from Asaba this morning. Now, could you imagine how the people of Onitsha and Asaba have endured such a situation for over 25, 30 years? This is reality. We cannot overestimate the importance of the second River Niger Bridge. To express appreciation to our President, Muhammad Buhari, for being the vehicle for the execution of this monumental project.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Claire?
Yes, thank you, Kingsley. And I just want Dr. Faisal to also give us an understanding, because you talked about out of the 10,000, health care centers that was projected for work, 6,000 had been done. Now, what is the contribution of this 6,000, to the goals and targets of the UHC?
When you're looking at the journey towards achieving universal health coverage, there's the component around the service delivery, right? And then there's the component around the risk protection, financial risk protection. So that is the part that the NHI covers. NPA CDA, is around the service delivery. So when you have renovated and improved functionality of 6,000 primary healthcare centers, what it means is that you are providing more and better service, so that once the individual comes to that health facility, he or she gets better care and he leaves that health facility, you know, better than they came, right? So, of course, when you compare 6,000 to the 10,000 that you initially targeted, that's just about 60%, but that is still a small drop in the ocean compared to over 25,000 primary healthcare centers that exist. So the question that you should be asking is, how did we get to a situation where it was only in 2017 that we started this journey to try and revitalize only 10,000 out of 25,000? What happened in the last 20, 30 years? There has been an under-investment in primary health care, right? So again, this is why for me, the glass is not half empty, it's half full. It is now how you sort of make sure that you continue on that trajectory, sustaining it, right?
Okay, Dr. Pfizer, you are touching on a point that Dr. Abuja is very familiar with, because he worked with Professor Olukoya Ransom-Kuti. And we all know that Professor Olukoya Ransom-Kuti, as Minister of Health, was widely celebrated for kicking off the primary healthcare initiatives that have worked in different parts of the country. But I would like Dr. Abuja to speak to this issue of the political economy factor in our healthcare management system. And that political economy factor also will take into account the structural issues that he talked about. To say, look, where you have, sometimes our federalism is, the practice of it is chaotic and power-driven. To say, no, I'm the CEO here, I'm the emperor, I'm the chairman of a local government, you can't tell me what to do. But where you have a unitary system, as we had during the military regime, when Professor Olukoya Ransom-Kuti was Minister of Health for many years. Now, was that a success factor for him? And of course, we can't have military regimes now, but what is it that we could possibly borrow in terms of streamlining our healthcare system to deliver these results? Again, as I said, you worked with him, and so you know the story. So tell our viewers.
Well, before I even answer that, let me go back and add a little bit to Dr. Jafar's comment about the legal framework for national health coverage in the country. Luckily, exactly a year today, 19th of May 2022, the National Health Insurance Authority Bill was signed by President Buhari exactly a year today. So the legal framework is there. Just to comment on that. Now, if I were to choose, coming back to your question, between a unitary government and a federalism that we operate in, say, for example, you ask me, you are going to be the health administrator. Choose between the two systems, which one would you want to operate? I would go for the federal.
Why?
And I will tell you why. If you take the population, the size of the country, like Nigeria, what is happening in Rwanda, you cannot do it here. It's not possible. Rwanda is doing it because of the the small size of the country, the small population. How many people can you reach in Nigeria within a week? Compared to Rwanda, for example, where you could go from Kigali to whatever village you want to within hours. And the reason why they can go vertically and succeed without worrying about going horizontally is because of the little size of the physical size of the country and the small population that they have. I think it is even to our advantage that we have the federal system that we have to achieve universal health coverage. And I'll tell you why, to come to ask your questions. But
it's not working. Obviously.
Well, we are talking. I think one of the good suggestions that Prof made a little while ago was he is proposing that health experts sit together and frankly talk to themselves, criticize themselves. The problem I have personally as a Nigerian is the fact that we don't want to hear bad stories, but they exist. We want people to say, ah, you are doing very well. They want people to clap for us. Yes, if you are doing well, we should clap for you. But if you are not doing well, we should also talk about it. Because that's life. There's no such system as perfect system. Okay, now, if we have that kind of opportunity where we health experts sit down together, we argue, we debate, back and forth, we give examples, we would come up with something better than where we are now. At least proposals that are better. Many of them have been done. And those are the kind of meetings that lead to the health policies that we're implementing now. No one single person sat in a room and came up with the policies that we're implementing. So I think that suggestion is good. We should look at it. But let me come now.
Yeah, to come in. Let me take this along with it.
Yes.
Because the idea in confronting the structural issues we have in our healthcare delivery system is such that, look, when a policy is agreed at the national level, how do you cascade it down? Not necessarily, how do you operationalize it? Well, our federal system will say, oh, okay, this is the National Health Act, for instance, I have to domesticate it. And domestication takes almost forever. If there's an idea, it doesn't mean, for instance, that if you run a unitary system, you will have all your commodities. Dr. Pfizer will have all the vaccines stored up in one location. When there's an outbreak somewhere, that's when they will start deploying his personnel to go there. It is to say, look, directives, ideas, occurrences, implementation, and feedback should flow up. I think that's what is incorporated in what Professor Sambo was indicating. But respond to that, Doc.
Yes.
Yes, please, I implore you do that briefly.
Yes.
So that,
one of the things I was lucky to work with Professor Asom Kuti. And as a matter of fact, I was also lucky. I was the youngest of the 4 people that came up with the idea of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Professor Asom Kuti, Dr. Smith, Dr. Shorungbe, and I was a youth copper. The guy who knew how to do computer work at that time, I was the one running around the elders. And when we were doing training in primary healthcare in different states, I was also the rat running around most of the states at that time.
There was no Lassa fever then.
There was.
Okay.
So I was lucky. Now, the idea of the National Primary Healthcare System or agency that was conceived was that the federal government would set policies, the federal government would build the comprehensive health care centers, like Dr. Pfizer has just said, but they will stop there. The state governments are supposed to furnish and equip those health care centers. The local governments are supposed to provide the personnel to work in those healthcare centers. So you can see the 3 levels operating at the same time, and the need why there should be coordination and communication and collaboration. If you build the healthcare centers and there's no equipment, they're useless. If you build them and equip them, but there's no staff to operate them, they're useless. So the idea is this: if for any reason a state is not able to do something, the federal government is coming up with something. And this is one of the reasons why some of us strongly, not just normally, strongly argue that the local government should be giving their money directly by the federal government, so that the states don't take their money and strangulate them.
Okay.
If the local governments have their own money and they can pay their own staff, the healthcare centers that Dr. Pfizer is talking about will be doing much better than they are doing now.
Okay, let me pause you there and quickly bring in Dr. Alaode quickly, so that we can also take a final comment from Professor Sambo. NHIA intervention here is very critical, but the structure, because the Prof has indicated he would prefer a decentralization, of the structure, so that it can be more effective. Can you speak on the structure of the NIA? What structure would you like to see?
Okay. To start with, I think we have a decentralized structure already.
Okay.
Like what Prof said earlier on, if you almost probably 35 out of 36 or 34 have their state social health insurance scheme, which is, of course, to work with the National Health Insurance Authority to be able to enroll more people, provide services and all those stuff. I think what is important now is to ensure that, because one of the most important things for this state health insurance that is embedded in their law, they are supposed to dedicate 1% of their consolidated revenue at the state level to buying health insurance for the poor and vulnerable. Why some have started that, probably more, we have more that have not started giving the resources than those that are giving it. I think there is a huge need for, which is, again, the NHA have started, effective engagement with the state governors. Because the truth of the matter is this: some of the state governors actually are not even aware of some of these policy directions. That's the truth of the matter.
Yeah, so what's your submission?
So the submission is that I think we need to engage more, you understand, and the level of Nigerian, and that's something that works. At the level of Nigerian governors, sometimes the governors are sensitive to peer comparison. If you put up a scorecard that shows that, oh, Lagos has done this, Sokoto has not done that, and everything, the Sokoto state government will go back to his people. Why did you now put me to shame in the midst of whatever? So I think peer comparison and effective engagement works at that level to bring the governors
Professor
on board.
I have a question, and this is specific, and I'd like to read it the way it's written. We've also heard that cesarean section is free and covered under the NHIA, but the surgeons usually compel expectant fathers to pay 20,000 naira for surgical kits. Otherwise, they will use a recycled kit for operation. The question is, if CS operation is covered, how come the surgical kits for the operation are not covered? And this is, I'm going to read it, this is the practice in our Sokoro and several general hospitals in Abuja.
This is, I think, alien to us, because the guideline of the National Health Insurance, even the revised one, is very clear. There is a provision for co-payment. When you are billed, you pay 10% a co-payment. And the whole idea of the co-payment is one of the gatekeeping arrangement within the National Health Insurance, so that moral hazard will not occur. What is moral hazard? If I know that I can go and seek for treatment anytime, I will just, whether I have sickness or not, I will go and look for it. So that 10%, which is a core payment, can serve as a barrier for somebody who has no money to go. But that kit is not within our guideline, and we will investigate and find out why is this happening. Yes.
And the hospitals in question are Sokoro and several general hospitals. And there's one, the expectant fathers are expected to pay 20,000 naira for the surgical kit, otherwise they will use a recycled kit for operation. I mean,
I don't think any responsible hospital will use a recycled kit.
Well,
I don't think.
I read it the way it came.
No, this has to be investigated.
Yes.
It's not everything that people have written that will take hook, line, and sinker. In fact,
they said we don't read anything on this program.
There are kits, there are operation items that are sterilized and used. Depending on if
others are disposable.
Others are disposable.
Yes, okay. Just to find out.
But is it the expectant fathers that are supposed to buy it, or the expectant mothers? No, but I'm just wondering.
Your last thing. Yes, please.
No, but last comment that I would like you to address: how do we get state governors, and if you may, local governments, to be more attuned to the live issues in the health sector and how to move forward?
Please, in 60 seconds, if you can.
Right. Thank you very much. So it's got to be with advocacy. My colleague mentioned using the platform of the Nigeria Governors Forum, using the press, the peer, review. Just 2 days ago, we had the PAC Leadership Challenge, where we gave awards to the best performing governors. Those are opportunities really for states to compare what they are doing, which governors are doing the right things. But I also believe that the principles should be around how we can pull more money to the health sector. But apart from pulling more money to the health sector, making sure that there's more health for the money, right? So in terms of efficiency, it's also important that we take up opportunities to increase the pool of resources. So, for example, Aliko Dangote once, mentioned that it is important for us to consider a 1% tax for the very rich. But above all, it is important to emphasize accountability. What are we doing with even the resources that are available? And then how are we holding health workers? How are we holding people accountable for delivery? In terms of the strategies are there. In terms of experts meet. Just a few weeks ago, the Lancet Commission, was very clear about what we needed to do with the health sector. It's not about meeting again. It's about what we already know. Can we just implement it to the
deliver
and deliver on it? That's
right.
What we need to do in Nigeria.
Dr. Faisal Shuaib, always a delight having all you gentlemen on Good Morning Nigeria. I mean, these are matters we'll return to going forward because we all need to be healthier so that we also have a much healthier nation. Dr. Faisal Shuaib, Executive Director and CEO of National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, thank you for being our guest this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We also would like to appreciate Dr. Isaac Abuja, public health specialist. Thank you for being on the program. Dr. Gafar Alawode, expert on health financing, always a delight having you. And of course, last but not the least, Professor Nasir Sambo, Director General, National Health Insurance Authority. Thank you for being our guest. And the structural issues, I think these are things we will have to look at going forward. That's the theory of healthcare system and the structural factors. All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria for today and indeed for the week. Join us again on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning for a fresh package. Until then, look after yourselves and enjoy your weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
I'm Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. The fight against rape and rapists is still on. We invite you to be our partner in this regard. That way you too can be a star. Now from me and the rest of the production crew, the Good Morning Nigeria crew, we wish you a pleasant weekend and see you on Monday. Bye-bye.
By extension, you are educating the world. If that man